Certainty Principle by David Light, Chapter 1. I start out the chapter with the glossary, going over some terms that are repeated throughout the book, so I thought it'd be a good idea at this point to introduce them. The first is the certainty principle, which is really just a formula. It's an equation that describes the relationship between 5 different variables that I feel, taken together, determine the brain's state of certainty or confidence. Certainty is the brain state of equilibrium, defined as confident optimism. Achievement increases with certainty. Horizon is an individual's temporal perspective or decision-making time frame of accountability. The quality and quantity of choices improve as horizons expand, compounding certainty. So, long-term temporal perspective is better than short-term. Mandate is an individual's locus of accountability. It's a unique domain of purpose. So everybody's got one. Typically, it's based on skills and talents, combination of those things and experiences, but it's less what you love and more what you should do. Or to be more specific, your mandate are the problems and that you find solutions for, or the tasks that you complete and people will pay you for. In both cases, people will pay you for it. Income, good segue, the aggregate of all the benefits of what you get for what you do, and the persistent execution of your mandate. Incomes do not increase if you're not pursuing your mandate. It's really the underlying motivator for diligence and for durability. Monitoring and increasing your incomes creates certainty and is very important. Now, the 2 denominator variables, identity or vanity, is the brain's fabricated story of itself. We're going to cover this in depth, but the brain is a sorting device. It sorts to survive, but the manifestation of this constant struggle to do so is a delusion we call identity. So once your brain learned to struggle and it really didn't have to worry about food and it really didn't have to worry about shelter and it didn't have to worry about the other stuff anymore, it starts to struggle over identity, and that's a complete waste of time and it's a complete fabrication. Identity distorts experience, occludes opportunity, and diminishes certainty. And outcomes are produced by a confluence of individual choices of action taken together with external conditions within which these actions play out. You can't hang your hat on outcomes. Regret and fear result from the brain's enthrallment with past and future outcomes. Though actions do create certainty, outcomes are probabilistic and are unreliable as a source of certainty creation, so you can't rely on them. You do what you need to do, and damn the torpedoes. Chapter 1, Meeting Davy Crockett. Quote, "Dave, be sure you're right, then go ahead," unquote. Fess Parker, Davy Crockett, 1989. Davy Crockett was one of the first TV miniseries. Produced by Disney, it aired in the mid-50s and reran again and again into the 1960s. Most boys of my generation were coonskin cap-wearing devotees of the legendary frontiersman portrayed by Fess Parker. I was no exception. Along with Elvis, the show and its popular theme song became male cultural icons of the day. Davy Crockett, king of the wild frontier, is kind of the way it went. As a kid, my mom's pet name for me was Davy Crockett, after my legendary namesake, and it remained so right up to the time of her passing. Imagine my surprise when one day in 1989, while shopping at a Safeway store in San Francisco, of all places, I'm rounding an end cap and walk right into 6'5" Fess Parker standing in front of a display of wine bottles labeled Parker Estates. Though I was then a grown up, and that didn't keep me from going stupid at the sight of my childhood hero. Well, I'm guessing this wasn't the first time old Fess had to suffer such silliness from somebody over 10 years old. After talking me back down into acting like an adult, he took a large card out of his pocket while asking me, "What was your name again?" I had not introduced myself, but he autographed it along with the historically accurate Crockett quote: "Be sure you're right, then go ahead." TCP shows me that being sure that I'm right, then going ahead, doesn't promise an outcome that will turn out to be as expected. But at least I know where I'm headed, and knowing where I'm headed beats the alternative by a frontier mile. Heads up horizontal thinking reduces the perception of the inevitable obstacles in the path by creating the confidence to overcome and avoid them without getting stuck. The certainty that I will get myself out of pretty much whatever predicament I encounter means that I don't have to waste time and energy worrying about any particular outcome. Certainty comes in carelessness about outcomes. This might seem like circular logic, but it works for Davy and it's good enough for me. At 10, my friends Chris and Taylor and I were pretty much the local chapter of the Davy Crockett Club. On weekends, we were inseparable, and during the summertime especially, our vast frontier was the 1,000 acres or so surrounding my family's farm in southeast Pennsylvania. Our missions were simple: hiking, hunting crayfish and snakes and other critters while navigating the twin streams that ran through the lowlands of our frontier. We needed each other, for sure, but we always felt that we, like Davy, were the good guys. Summer days were all Saturdays. We'd meet up and go exploring on our bikes, our BB guns, our bows and bowie knives along the endless deer trails that crisscrossed the fields and woods. We were limited only by how far we could hike before getting hungry. We'd meet under a 100-foot black oak that stood roughly center point at a triangle formed by our three houses. If I got there first, I'd sprawl out in the grass and doze off, soaking in the summer around me. I felt planted, as deep as the oak roots running under my back. The daydreaming delight of gazing up through the leaves, waiting for the boys on one school-free June morning still sticks with me. Cutting a stalk of honeysuckle flowers, I dropped my gear and plopped down in the clearing to chew the sweet buds. The sun-soaked wind hissing through the wheatgrass and across my face sent a dizzying electricity through my head. I was free, and my anticipation of the day hiking into fresh adventures with my buddies was too good to be true. The possibilities seemed endless. Till the sun set over the barn, I'd be going. And armed with my bow and knife, I was sure that there was nothing on the trail that I couldn't deal with. I was immortal. I wanted to keep that deep joy of being a kid, set free from school and parental control, confident that wherever I went and whatever I found, when I got there, I was going to be just fine with me. I've traveled to many exotic places since, and fragments of that feeling often return, but always a pale shadow of those extraordinary mornings back then. I struggled with understanding why those days felt so perfect, and why my confident enthusiasm faded as I grew older. That is, until I began investigating TCP, until Mr. Bogle, as you'll see below, wrote me in 2014 about Forever Horizons. That expression evoked a refreshing feeling, the same at home in my skin confidence that I'd known at 10 years old. Did the experience suggest that there was a formula for restoring and maintaining this optimistic confidence, this certainty? I decided I would find out. I would go hunting for the home I had left many decades before. Quote, for the information of young hunters, I will just say that whenever a fella gets bad lost, the way home is just the way he don't think it is. This rule will hit 9 times out of 10. Unquote. Davy Crockett, 1834. Was it my preparation, the care for my gear, the chores completed, and arriving early that made my eagerness and confidence in the course of the day so authentic? Was it the trust we Crocketeers had perfected back at a time when we chose our own way? How could I find my brain back to a place where the tall grass hisses and the wind electrifies and stay there forever? Could I find that place that holds the sensation of invincibility pardon me, that I experienced as a summer boy of 10 years old? Discovering the secret for me, or why it all seemed so right that day, and why it all seemed so certain, came from just the opposite direction I was looking. Invincibility wasn't found reminiscing about the past. It was discovering that limitations tended to disappear when I discovered a deep understanding of my mission and unlimited perspective about the future. That perspective unshackled me from identification with threats, prospective fear about the future, and regrets, retrospective fear about the consequences of the past. It dogged me in my later days. I could be a free man, free to be selfless, and selflessness is the starting place of certainty.